After sightseeing through the northern region of France, our Normandy and Gems of the Seine River Cruise with Scenic has delivered us, as promised, to one of the most historic and significant war zones in Australian history.
In April of 1918, Australian Defence Forces halted the German advance on this area, an area considered vital to Germany's success in the war. What was once a prosperous village, Villers-Bretonneux here, had been absolutely decimated, reduced to ruin and rubble. And the Australians not only successfully held and defended the village for the locals, they helped rebuild it, creating a bond that exists to this very day.
This small French village will forever remember the sacrifice those Australians made, and the town now serves as somewhat of a shrine to that memory. It's hard to believe this peaceful and picturesque countryside was home to so much devastation.
These fields here were the site of some of the largest and bloodiest battles, not just in the First World War, but in history. Trench warfare, chest deep in dirt and fear, snatching sleep in the cold and the wet, your rifle as a blanket, horror for a pillow, bullets flying overhead, your mates falling all around you, and orders to rise from the trenches and stumble into the gunfire once again. Australian casualties here were 23,000 men, 6,800 deaths.
The Australian National Memorial honours those Australians who lost their lives on the Western Front during World War I. Sunken into the landscape behind the Wall of Remembrance is the Sir John Monash Centre, an immersive museum giving an insight into the experience of those Australians on the front line.
It's such an impressive centre.
It really is, isn't it? It just really captures so much.
Yeah, and you feel like you're right in the heart of the battlefield.
Yeah, and you literally are. I mean, the centre itself is dug into the ground, you know, so it's right behind the Australian National Memorial where it was a battlefield.
This is all built and researched by Australia?
Yeah, it's the Australian government's commitment to sort of continuing to commemorate.
And you as director are an Australian?
I'm an Australian as well, yeah. So I get to be here and share the stories of Australians. So they didn't die in vain. We're here to make sure they're remembered.
The scars of the Somme are evident throughout the surrounding countryside, but perhaps nowhere more so than the Lochnagar crater.
The Allies were here and the Germans were there, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And where did they start tunnelling?
They started tunnelling about 270 metres away, just behind the Allied front line, with the intention of working the tunnel up towards the German front line, but not actually going underneath it and giving away their own location.
Right. So how much explosive did they put in here?
It's about 25 tonnes of explosive.
The idea being?
That when it blew, you'd get a massive shockwave, which would destroy the nearby German trenches, and also you'd get a bank of earth thrown up right around the crater that would act as a barrier so that German defenders further over wouldn't be able to see British troop movements on that flank moving across towards their line.
Right.
Somme comes from a Celtic word meaning tranquility, but in 1916 it was anything but.
At the time, this was the largest explosion ever detonated. The bang was the loudest noise in history to date. They said that you could even hear it in London. And there's a written account from Cecil Lewis, who was an officer in the Royal Flying Corps, who witnessed the explosion from his aircraft above. And he said the whole earth heaved and flared. A tremendous and magnificent column rose up into the sky. There was an ear-splitting roar, drowning all the guns, flinging his machine sideways in the repercussing air. The earth column rose higher and higher to almost 4,000 feet.
The history of hardship is in stark contrast to the comfort aboard Scenic Gem. From the luxurious suites to the five-star culinary experiences.
As well as the main restaurant, there is a fine dining restaurant, L'Amour, which you will be invited to at least once on your cruise. And befitting of a fine dining restaurant is a menu with items such as mousse de truite fumée et gelée de camembert, risotto au saffron au magret de canard fumé, and côte de bœuf. How good is that? Magnifique.